You know, in the long sweep of history, some lives shine so brightly that they're not just written down as facts, they're woven into the very soul of a people, as legend. Today, we're going to explore one of those chronicles, the incredible story of Luang Pho Bai of Wat Chong Lom, a master whose spirit was every bit as deep and powerful as the river he so famously defied.
And that's the thing about a true legend. It isn't just a story someone tells. It's the echo of a life lived with such profound purpose. When you look at this image, you can feel a kind of serene power, a strength that was forged in the fire of immense trials. This is the story of how that power came to be and the mark it left on the world forever.
Every great epic has its beginning, its first chapter. And so often, those beginnings are found in the humblest of places, where the seeds of an incredible destiny are quietly planted.
It all started back in the year 2404. The boy who would one day be known as Luang Pho Bai began his life as an orphan. But you could say his path was already laid out for him. At just 10 years old, he was taken in by Phra Ajarn Nong, who was the brother of the great master Luang Pho Bai. It was there his monastic studies began, and by the time he turned 20, his destiny was sealed. He was fully ordained and set out on a journey that would change everything.
See, to become a legend, you don't just learn a few things. You have to be tempered, like steel in a fire. You have to draw wisdom from the deepest wells of knowledge. This was his path to true mastery.
And he didn't just learn from one master. Oh no, he learned from a whole confluence of the era's greatest spiritual minds. I mean, we're talking about giants like Luang Pho Bai and his own adoptive father. But the most profound connection he had was with his primary mentor, the legendary Luang Pho Bai, the absolute master of the Mekong region. It was from him that he inherited a lineage of immense spiritual power. Then, in the year 2437, he undertook a grueling Thudong pilgrimage. For 4 months, he journeyed through the untamed wilderness. This wasn't just a trip. This was a crucible. It was an ordeal of pure endurance and solitude that stripped away everything but the essential and forged his spirit into something unbreakable, something pure. And it was that unbreakable spirit that would soon face the greatest trial of his entire life. This wasn't a fight against other men, or even against demons. This was a battle against the slow, relentless, and unforgiving power of nature itself.
By the year 2470, the mighty Mai Klong River, the very lifeblood of the entire region, had turned into a threat. Luang Pho Bai was the abbot of Wat Chong Lom, a role he'd held since 2445, and he had to watch as year after year the river just chewed away at the temple's foundations until the sacred halls themselves were about to be swallowed by the current.
Now this says everything about the depth of his character. Faced with the total destruction of his temple, what did he do? He didn't launch some grand campaign or beg for help. He stayed silent. He placed his trust not in fundraising, but in a power he knew was far, far greater, the power of faith.
Word of the temple's danger didn't spread through big announcements. It spread through whispers, from one person to another. And in response, the people, well, they created their own river, a river of faith. They just started showing up with bricks, with wood. They offered their own hands to do the work, and they gave what little money they had. Together, they built a wall of pure devotion to turn back the tide.
It's in moments like these, when faith becomes so powerful and so profound that the veil between our world and another can seem to thin. And it was then that his spiritual power, forged through all those trials, began to show itself in ways that would become the stuff of legend. The story starts with a young woman. She was beautiful, but she found herself the target of an admirer she had rejected. And when she turned him down, his desire twisted into something dark, something truly malevolent.
He unleashed a terrible curse on her. Every single night as she tried to sleep, her room would just fill with a horrifying swarm of worms. They would materialize out of thin air, crawling over her bed, over her body. A living nightmare summoned by black magic. Absolutely desperate, she and her father went to the one man they believed could possibly help. Luang Pho Bai listened calmly to their terrified story. He didn't offer some complex ritual or a grand spell. He simply offered them water from his own alms bowl, right after he had finished his meal. So she did exactly as he said. She drank the blessed water, and that night she sprinkled what was left on those writhing worms. And instantly, the curse was broken. The worms transformed into nothing more than simple grains of cooked rice. The dark magic, when faced with that pure spiritual power, was just undone. And the next morning, Her tormentor was seen in the market, having completely lost his mind. His own evil had been turned right back on him.
This same incredible protective power was something he could infuse into sacred objects he created for his followers. I mean, these weren't just pieces of metal. You have to understand, they were vessels for his spiritual energy. They were amulets, forged to be shields against all the dangers of the world.
His amulets became famous for their protective powers, what's known as Phutthacharn. They were said to offer protection from weapons and to give you grace in the eyes of others. But the most famous legend of all was the one about the Satang Ru, the old hold coins. It was said that fishermen who wore them were completely immune to the bites of deadly sea snakes, and that children who wore them could not drown. For the people who lived and worked on that river, this wasn't some superstition, this was survival.
A life lived with that kind of impact doesn't simply end. It transforms. It passes from the physical world into an eternal legacy, a light that just keeps on shining.
In the year 2485, after 60 years of serving in the monkhood, Luang Pho Bai passed away peacefully at the age of 81. But his light, well, it was far from being put out.
His monastic name was Thammachoto, and what that means is he who is a brilliant light in the Dhamma, or in the universal truth. And it wasn't just a name, was it? It was the perfect description of his entire life's work, to be a beacon of strength, of wisdom, and of unwavering faith for anyone who needed his guidance.
And today, Wat Chong Lom is still standing, not on the edge of some collapsing riverbank, but on solid ground. It remains a living monument, a testament to that quiet monk who inspired a river of faith so powerful it could defy a river of water, and whose will was strong enough to literally move a sanctuary.
And this really leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? Does a legacy like his just belong to the past? Or does the faith of one remarkable person actually become a kind of protective force, an eternal light that keeps rippling through time, inspiring those of us who hear the legend, even today?